I guess I'll go ahead and get started. I don't normally do this kind of sharing of my free time and thoughts. Normally, I do this kind of thing with my wife Jess and my buddies Brent and Rick. I've roped my daughter into playing video games before. Hello, Squid. Good morning. So I don't know what I'm going to say. I have some ideas. All I know is I have some things that I need to say. I need to get them off my chest because I've got thoughts and feelings about this topic. So if you have no idea what I'm talking about or even who the hell I am, hi, I am Nick of the Shady Rogues. Normally, I just play video games and talk at myself or my wife or friend or, chat about whatever is on my brain while I'm playing these video games in an effort to entertain myself and others in a harebrained scheme to try to generate a hustle large enough to make a dent in my student loans. So that's why I do this. But also, it's fun. I do it for my own personal pleasure. I do it to kind of share my life and fun with others, which it's fun. It's fulfilling. I do it to give myself something to do. I do it to be a cool dad to my 9-year-old who thinks that streaming and YouTubing is, something that is, I don't know, way harder than it actually is. But anyway, so that's me. Normally I do video games. Normally I talk about movies. I do talk about politics. Talk about comic books and whatever. Talk about living in Kentucky. And today I'm going to talk about guns. And I'm going to try to get my point across in a semi-educational and entertaining way. I'm going to try not to get too. I'm not going to try to give anybody emotional whiplash. I don't want this to be a trauma dump. I want this to be meaningful. I'm going to bring some NPR stylings to the Twitch and the YouTube with my, I don't know, radio voice or something. So I'll start off with a story, which is what got me here today. So yesterday, let's see, what is today? We'll do a little bit of dating this. Today is Friday, October 27th at 1 p.m. Eastern time. And I had planned to do this tirade yesterday because while my wonderful wife Jess was getting ready to go to a real job that pays the bills and provides health care to both me and my wife and our 2 children, a real job. She asked me if I had heard the news. And, my knee-jerk reaction is, who's died or how horrible is the situation in Gaza gotten. So I'm kind of ping ponging everywhere about what horrible thing is she mentioning, or possibly, I don't know, maybe some good thing. Maybe, Joe Biden just finally, got tired of the student loan problem and just waved his executive magic wand and just forgave all that stuff. Just wiped it all out, Bernie Sanders style. But hey, none of that, and kind of just a boring old mass shooting in Maine this time. So by the time that anybody else listens to this, it'll probably be old news. I mean the only reason why it's still news right now is because I think at the time of me broadcasting this, the insane gunman hasn't been caught yet. I mean, that's the only reason why it's still relevant. It's still newsworthy. But so she brings that up. At the time, by the time that this goes out, this will be old news if this sees the light of the YouTube. So she brings this up and talks about how that a coworker texted her. I don't, people at her office were bringing attention to this particular mass shooting, which made me think, okay, this must be a particularly bad one. Not that we have good ones here in the States. But anyway, let me take a drink. So basically, she tells me about this, and we kind of we go about our morning rituals. I'm helping her get her out the door as I am a stay-at-home dad slash home support class manager. I get people where they need to go. I get my girls to school and daycare, and I get my wife out the door so she can go make the money. So I can be a stay-at-home beta male, soy boy, whatever. So she goes about her business, and I had planned to do this because I was really in a raw mood because of because of all the news and so forth. And I thought, hey, I'll play a game and and talk about this. And then I ended up, this is a tangent, but waiting for a plumber to show up for most of yesterday. So I guess things are working out because I was like, hey, just chat in Twitch and tell your stories, Nick, and go about your business and get your exercise your demons, have your catharsis, and feel like you've done your job to infotain people. So for whoever is going to hear this in the future, I titled this Twitch stream, "I'm tired of feeling like I'm drowning in a sea of guns." And I don't really know of another way to describe this. I'm not like a poet by trade. I don't pay bills by talking into a microphone, So I am just trying to express my thoughts as best I can in hopefully a constructive way. And I guess, some context considering, I'm just a goblin dad in Kentucky trying to do the best I can. That's kind of my joke in a game I play, City of Heroes. and I like having my little steampunk goblin avatar as my profile pic on Twitch. So I'm just a stay-at-home dad trying to do the best that I can in this world run by madmen. So I had a thought that that I'm just going to share the people, or not necessarily the people, because some of these stories aren't really mine to tell, because I kind of feel like I'm already arguing with some guy, some Second Amendment T-shirt wearing gun pervert, ammo sexual type in my head. Like I'm already arguing with that person because I've kind of argued with a version of that person in real life before. So I just kind of feel like I have, shields up, battle station, ready to go. And, I'm just already hearing in my head the reply of, you don't know anything about guns. You don't own a gun. You just want to take all the guns away, or, this is my right. Whatever. Fill in the blank with whatever Second Amendment worshiping gun fanboy has to say. I'm sure if you're listening to this, you've heard these things before. Possibly if you're already feverishly, typing, Nick of the Shady Rogues, you just want to take all the guns away because you want to do a communism. I don't know. Like I'm already arguing with you, but I'm just like, hey, hear me out. I don't know calibers and full automatic or semi-automatic. I don't know all of the D&D rules for how a gun works, but I did know two people to lose their lives from gun violence before I was a legal adult. And I don't want to turn this into a trauma dump. I want to give proper context for why I hold the views that I do hold. So I feel like giving the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, let's call it 6 degrees of, gun violence that I've experienced as a 42-year-old dude who's lived in Kentucky all of his life. And no matter how crazy this red state keeps getting, they're not going to run me off. This is my home. Fuck you, ain't leaving. And like, I feel like that anybody hearing me probably has a 6 degrees of gun violence story. So, while I was in elementary school, I'm just going to rattle them off real quick. Some of these are my stories to tell, and some people, and some other ones, are not, and I'll just kind of be general because I don't want to, I don't want to, I don't want to dox myself. I am broadcasting from a bunker in the mediocre state of Kentucky. I don't want to dox myself, and I don't want to dox other people, depending. I mean, gun violence is so common. But at the same time, I'm sure if somebody dug, they could find out, details and so forth. But as I was saying, before I was out of elementary school, a friend of the family committed suicide. So, and hey, when people have access to guns, they are more likely to carry out a successful, completed, I should say, a completed suicide. And my senior year in high school, an immediate member of my family was murdered through gun violence. That is a particularly difficult story, and I don't want to talk about the specifics of that because I feel like that would be a big discussion in itself, and but at the same time, I don't want to minimize it. And then maybe about 10 years beyond that, a member of my step family either committed suicide or was murdered, which also brings into it kind of brings into the discussion people with mental illness and that are a danger to themselves or others, committing violence on their loved ones. So this individual was either committed suicide or was murdered. I honestly don't know. I'm not on speaking terms with my stepfamily. So, and also I do feel kind of bad about bringing that up. But at the same time, the individual in question, hey, I went to family get together. So I did know them. And then the kind of the most recent one, and this is one that it is someone else's trauma, but it has touched my life and my wife Jessica's life, in that a person that we went to high school with, their elementary school daughter either purposely or on accident shot themselves with a handgun that was not properly secured. And honestly, that's a farther, it's not like an immediate family, but I remember going to high school with this person. I wasn't particularly more friends with Jess, but the story really bothers me because it was actually all this took place in the small town in Kentucky that I grew up in. And I remember telling our oldest daughter, I remember having a conversation with our oldest daughter after I found out about this, that me and Jess had a conversation about this. And I feel it important to relay to my children when something's wrong as a way to teach them, hey, mommy and daddy are sad right now. So if we feel off, or if you see us cry or something like that, that's something's wrong. You didn't do anything, but we're feeling feelings, and it's okay to feel the feelings. And in that conversation, our oldest daughter asked, why are you all sad? And I guess people of the future can tell me if I should have lied to the kid or not. I mean, at the time, this was a few years ago, so I think she was 7 at the time, and I said, I told her that a child had acts that had either accidentally or on purpose, taken their own life. And I gave a very brief overview of what had happened, because in the and also I think that it is important to teach your kids that gun violence is a thing, which that is something that me and Jess worry. I don't want to say constantly, but it comes up. It comes up that we're worried about that, and I'll get more in that in a little bit, with some more discussions and I don't know, stories. Just a real feel good stream today. Feel good, but I think it's important to have this conversation. That's why I'm doing it. The very least, if I don't do anybody any good, I'm getting this off my chest. And I don't know. When my kids are adults, they can listen to this on YouTube. I can impart some words of wisdom to my children in the future. But I do think it's important to be honest with your kids, I guess. So that's kind of those are my 6 degrees of gun violence stories. And the reason why that last one, another reason why that one really bugs me, it just really, really bothers me, because I remember my grandmother. I've mentioned Nanny before. My dear grandmother, who I do not see eye to eye politically with. My grandmother called me right after this one happened, crying because she was grieving, and the small town that I come from was grieving. And my grandmother was asking her, I don't know, dearest grandson, her smart Nicky Poo. That is a nickname that my grandmother used to call me. Yes, I'll share that to lighten the mood. She was asking me, what could be done, or, our country is sick, putting it more, I guess, religious terms than I feel comfortable with, And I didn't really have an answer for her, because nothing is going to change in this country at all. Nothing is going to happen. Nothing meaningful has happened politically that's going to limit access to guns, or the kinds of guns that are just everywhere in this country. And honestly, I was kind of angry with her, a little bit more feelings. It's like, my grandmother is someone who considers abortion to be murder. And she has been, actively voting for individuals to protect babies for probably all her adult life. And these are the same people who will do absolutely nothing when it comes to bringing about any meaningful anything about gun violence. So, little grumpy with Nanny because, hey, she is voting for the people who are actively fucking up the world. But, you know, I was a good grandson and didn't word it that way. Um, I like to think that I'm a better parent than grandson. So, what else? I feel like let's back up, because maybe some of you who listen to this in the future, maybe you're in a different country, maybe you're in a different state in the United States. I'm in Kentucky. It's a red state. It's an open carry state. What that means is that you can go out into public and have a loaded firearm attached to your body just because. And I know I say that out loud and it sounds absolutely crazy, because it is absolutely crazy. I've lived 42 years and I have never wanted a gun. I've never owned a gun. I've never been in a situation where I was like, Nick, you should have brought a gun. You should have owned a gun. I've had dogs, come at me on my property. Neighbors' dogs come at me, meaning me harm. And I used a boat oar to shoo them off. I didn't need a gun. I don't need to shoot at a moving anything to where I have to roll dice to see if I hit it. It's only going to make the situation worse in my mind. But, I'm a big brain, genius or something like that, or I don't know, East Coast elitist leftist or something like that. I don't know. I'm tangenting. Take a drink. So, because I live in a state with open carry laws, even though I live in an area that is bluer than the redder parts of Kentucky, I still see individuals walking around with guns. And for the gun perverts who talk about the only thing that stops a good guy with a gun, or excuse me, the only thing that stops a bad guy with a gun, I'm already getting confused. I can't tell which is which. But when you're practically out in the situation, you can't tell who's a good guy with a gun and who's a bad guy with a gun when they're just someone at the Chinese buffet who happens to be armed, or somebody who accidentally discharges their firearm when they're getting crab rangoon at the Chinese buffet, or whatever, or they have to go pick up milk. Point taken, Squid. I will say, just for the sake of argument, to not bring the issues of police into this, let's just assume that the cops are good, winky face. That at least when, I go to Arby's and there's a cop with a gun, there's at least a basic understanding that guy is supposed to have a gun. Society has deemed this individual who, does the law and order, has a gun and is supposed to have it. And that their job is to keep the peace. Whether you believe that or not, or whatever, that's kind of irrelevant. But just on the topic of guns, Like when you see, just random dullard with a gun out and about at Mickey D's when you're trying to eat with your family, which happened the very first time that my family went out to eat after we just kind of gave up on, not getting COVID. I forget what it was. There was a couple years where we didn't go on vacation. My oldest was, doing virtual school at home. My wife was fortunate enough to have a job where she could work from home. And also the employer was like, everybody work from home. So the very first time that we were like, I guess we're going to go out to eat, we went to Mickey D's to make the kids happy. And I see an individual who didn't even have the ability to grow a full fucking beard was packing a handgun. And as soon as I see that, I think of the math in my head that this slack-jawed yokel dullard, I like the word dullard. I'm going to start using it more. I realize it's probably got some histories in ableism, like simpleton or, any, other things. But I'm going to use dullard. This dullard, this fetus, this person who, I probably got socks older than them, has a gun, and he's eating with his girlfriend and his friends. And I'm thinking, do you need a gun to shoot open your dipping sauce? Are you going to protect us from Al Qaeda while my daughters eat their nuggies? And I'm just thinking, this asshole makes gun death possible. That there was a situation where no guns existed, and now a gun has been brought into a system, a closed system, and now it becomes now there is a non-zero chance that somebody gets shot. And I didn't sign up for that. I didn't. I did not go into Mickey D's thinking, that I gave a passive endorsement to be around guns. And I think most of my frustration comes from even though I have lost people in my family to gun violence, people I care about to gun violence, I've come to terms with those. I've not given consent to have my kids around guns because it should be my right as a parent. Like, I got to be notified if either of my girls want to be called, he, him, or they, them. I get a phone call about that. But I get a mass email that a kid brought an air rifle sometime the week before to school, which is something that actually happened. And until just now, I had forgot about it because it's just another thing living in America. People across the pond or in Canada or wherever shit like this don't happen. And I'm frustrated that me and Jet, like, in order to get a babysitter, so me and Jess could go on a date, could go to the movies, and not bring our kids. We finally vetted some babysitters, and we've got a couple of babysitters that we like, and but as part of the vetting process, I got the only question that I have to ask. It's kind of a joke that, somebody who is talking into a microphone and can talk for, I don't know, at least 30 some odd minutes without really stopping, Jess handled all the talking when vetting our babysitters, except for one question. One question. Oh, I'm sorry. There's just one thing I really need to ask, and I don't know how to ask it. So I'm just going to ask it, and I don't want you to feel self-conscious or anything like that. This isn't a judgment, but do you have guns in the house? And are they secure? And I have asked this question twice to two, middle-aged white ladies. And both times there is this look of shock of, I wasn't expecting that question. The first time, she said no, and it's like, okay. And then Jess feels, I guess, obliged to tell why we feel the need to ask this question. So it's kind of a, I guess, more of a, I guess it's kind of like, I don't mean this in a, that it's kind of like a feminine emotional labor, a way to smooth over a potentially awkward social interaction. Like, oh, we didn't mean to offend you in your house to ask you this kind of invasive question. I'm sorry. We knew a girl that graduated with us to lose their child due to a gun-related oopsie. So please don't be mad at us. We have experienced secondhand trauma about this. So can you be a fucking human being and non-dullard like individual that we can trust to watch our children, so we can watch the latest Guardians of the Galaxy movie and maybe go out to eat like we used to? Are you like, excuse me, we would have just asked, are you a dullard? But we have to be very explicit and ask very specific questions. So, and then the second time, the person was like, well, I wasn't expecting that. We do have a gun, but it's locked up in a safe. And then it's just like, we just have to trust that it's, locked up in a safe and not, just under, behind the toilet or something. I don't know. underneath the couch cushions. And this stuff is just brimming under the surface with me and Jess, like our views on guns. Because like I have been afraid like that some random, you know, ammo sexual is going to come into my chat while I'm playing, I don't know, City of Heroes and just, you know, start talking about how, oh, you're just complaining and only, you know, blah, you know, blah, 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 fill in the blank here. Like, you know, and it's just like, even the subject of like, oh yeah, we need to go out on a date night because it's important to spend time with your, you know, your partner. And, you know, as, you know, part of like maintaining a happy, you know, partnership, marriage, you know, whatever the hell you want to call it. And like, oh yeah, we have to have a conversation with people about guns, like complete strangers. It's invasive. I don't want to have that. And like both times these ladies, it looks like I feel like I'm slapping them. And, you know, the second one was like, I was not expecting that question. And then Jess is like, oh, I'm sorry, madam, for us to come into your house, blah, 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 blah. Dead elementary school child, you know, because it happens when trauma like this happens, you're close to it. When something like that happens, it's real. And then you realize that bad things can happen to kids. And me and Jess are afraid to, you know, have our kids go spend the night at other people's houses and so forth, because it's going to be, you know, a conversation. Our oldest daughter has a best friend, and it's like they had their first sleepover a little while ago. And it's like, well, hopefully we can just have this kid sleep over here, because our oldest honestly would do better. And then, you know, we don't want to piss off our daughter's best friend's parents. Sorry, trying to protect the privacy of our kids and so forth. That's our own personal privacy settings. We only use first names for adults, we know. Yeah, I don't want to, because it's like you ask that question and people automatically get defensive, and it's like, oh, you think I'm one of those bad gun perverts? You think I'm a dullard? I'm not a dullard. You know, whatever. It's like, I don't want to be offensive to, you know, any, you know, Second Amendment out there. Well, honestly, I don't care. But, you know, hey, leave a comment below if you've made it 50 minutes in. You know, hey, good job. Good job. I give you a thumbs up. So, all right, I'm going to end it with one more story, and it's kind of the story that brought dullard back into my vocabulary, and you know, I'll try to tell it as funny as possible. Because nothing bad happened, but it kind of, I don't know, sums up just kind of living in Kentucky, as I see it with the I don't know, but anyway, so when our oldest turned 9, she wanted to get her ears pierced. We like purposely wanted to wait and make it her choice to get her ears pierced. Like, you know, me and Jess personally don't like the whole getting babies' ears pierced. It just kind of makes us feel icky. You know, hey, if you had your kids' ears pierced, you know, fine. I'm not gonna judge you. But like for us, we were like, and when she's old enough, she can make that choice if she wants to get her ears pierced or not. And it kind of became a little bit of a rite of passage. And when she turned 9, Jess took her to like a tattoo piercing place to get her ears pierced. And it was fine. She did a really, I was proud of her. She did a good job. I kept our 4-year-old because we didn't like this was kind of like a mommy daughter kind of thing. And one of the ears, kind of like she had some issues with one of her ears, and the whole, like she was having trouble getting the sticking point of the earring through one of her ears recently. And it kind of became a thing where we were putting it off. And then finally I was like, take this kid, like we're all going to go. Let's, do we need to get this ear re-pierced or whatever? So we end up going to the same place, and we hung out in a piercing and tattoo place for a little while. We were very much the turds in the punch bowl because, everybody in there were covered in tattoos and, piercings and so forth. And then here were the four of us, the Shady Rogue family, very unpierced and untattooed, but it was, it was fun. It was a good experience. She had to get her, I think it was her right ear re-pierced. And, while we were in there waiting for, the dude who had pierced my daughter's ears before to get ready, like we had to, hang out in their little waiting room and so forth. And while we were there, a gentleman came in and started like standing by us and like talking us up and so forth. And, even though I talk at and to complete strangers on the internet, I still don't really like, I don't like small talk. Like I just don't. Like I would rather talk about like religion or politics or movies or something like that rather than like, how's it going? Hell of a day. Did you catch that sports ball last night? Why, yes, I did. It was a jolly good show. Like I don't like that shit. It's just me. But this individual who was younger than me, white dude, beard, ball cap, and I didn't notice at the time when he was chatting us up what he had on his t-shirt or that he was armed. I didn't notice these things. And honestly, like Jess didn't either. And it wasn't until he was getting his tattoo touched up that I noticed that he had a literal Second Amendment t-shirt and that he had a handgun on his side. At the time when he was 2 feet away from my oldest daughter, talking to her and talking to me and all that stuff and just kind of being annoying, kind of like the random person that's chatting you up and it's a little awkward. It would have been a lot more awkward for me if I'd noticed that he was literally right next to my family with a handgun. When I did not consent for that at all. I did not consent for that at all. We had to sign things for the nice overall wearing tattooed covered gentleman to poke a sharp stabby hole making object through my oldest daughter's ear again. Like we had to sign all this stuff and bring in a birth certificate to prove her age and all that kind of stuff. But no one asked this slack-jawed, talkative dullard a goddamn question to walk into this place with a gun. And this is madness to me. Absolute madness. And it only gets worse because at one point in time, this guy pulls out a knife and starts cutting his pant leg off. I don't really know the proper way to describe that. So basically, from the knee down on one of his legs, he started cutting the blue jean off because this individual, this genius, was there to get his baked bean tattoo touched up. And he remembered to bring his fucking gun, but not wear shorts. I'm going to pause for comedic effect and to take a drink. Leave a comment below if you think this is how the world should work. You frothing at the mouth ammosexuals. All ammosexuals, remember to like and subscribe. Oh, excuse me, I have to cough. Hold on a second. I do apologize for that. Not calling the ammosexuals dullards, but, you know, hey, coughing in the microphone, or at least having to turn my microphone off in order to cough. So, I guess to wrap this catharsis up, I don't necessarily have problems with guns. Thank you, Squid. As I try to helm this ship to the dock, I don't have a problem with guns. I really don't. I guess, you know, hey, if you want to, I'll say this: I'm not a pacifist. I'm against war, but I'm not a pacifist. I'm not against self-defense. I am from Kentucky, and I have enough, backwoods redneck in me to understand that sometimes somebody's got to catch some hands. I get that, but also I think that we should use our words and talk about things, so no one has to catch hands. I see guns like leaded gasoline. I see guns in America like a public health issue. I do not see it as an expression of freedom. I realize that the individual who is wearing the Second Amendment T-shirt sees it as an expression of what it means to be American and what it means to exercise a right that everybody has, theoretically, in a video game. But I see it as blowing smoke in my face and an act of intimidation and not asking I see it I see it as a violation as as bodily autonomy, like my bodily safety, that I should have the right to go to the Chinese buffet and spend my money and talk to my buddy Brent, or I have a right to go to Kroger with my family or Mickey D's with my family, and not have to worry that some slack-jawed local dullard is packing a gun, and that they may, like, I don't know, trip and fall and discharge their weapon, or the weapon could go off, or whatever. I see it as a public health issue. I see it. I see. I can't remember which of the Saw movies it was. I think it was maybe the second one. Like there was, yeah. I'm going to bring up horror movies now. Yeah, the Saw movie. It was one of them where this individual, I think, who was like addicted to heroin, was in this room filled with like syringes, and she had to like dig through like needles to get to a key. And I just see America as this sea of guns. Like, in order to go to Kroger, I have to wade through a sea of potential guns. Like, I'm not even bringing up like concealed permits or anything like that. I just don't want somebody to like come in to where I'm going with the functional equivalent of a chip on their shoulder. Because I see that as, I'm armed. What are you going to say to me? Are you going to criticize what I'm wearing? Are you going to, criticize that I have a gun right near the most important people in your life? Like, and I don't think they understand that. Like, I certainly don't think the individual at the tattoo joint had the social awareness to realize what he was doing was making at least me and my wife feel uncomfortable. And, and we didn't even really think anything of it after the fact. Me and Jess came home, and then we had a great streaming session with Brent. It was the streaming session where we brought up the desk rent. Had a great stream. We didn't even think anything of it. It wasn't a week later, I was like, when I was getting down about like the madness in Gaza, hey, let's have a ceasefire, that it was like, oh yeah, the madness with Gaza and Israel, and like the madness of, we can't go to some place without worrying about gun violence. And I realize that those things are not equivalent. Like, I'm in no way trying to, but it's more of like, I'm trying to express the frustration with things kind of compounded in my head, which brought about this tirade and so forth. I'm not trying to, belittle people in a war zone, or equate my discomfort with their actual tangible suffering. Just want to say that to be clear. So yeah, I see. Me and Brent a few weeks ago, we got talking about like lead poisoning and how like there's some research. I don't know if it was like out of the world, like it was out of, I think the CDC was basically talking about like that people born before, I don't know, like 78 or 1980 in America have a higher percentage of like having some level of reduced cognitive functioning due to like lead being just sprayed into our our environment because of leaded gasoline. And like we were talking about that's how actually we opened up our City of Heroes streaming, talking about the wonderful topic of lead poisoning and how it's bad for your brain meat. And I just see guns as that. I just see it as it is this thing in the environment that the more you keep adding them, the more likely they are to be used in something that results in the ending of a human life. And that's my feelings on that. Tell me if I'm wrong. I'll stay on the chat a little bit longer, but I think that's where I'm going to say bye to the however I cut this on YouTube. So thank you for listening. Maybe I'll do something like this again in the future. So I'll say bye to the future people.